Hey everybody, I'm Robert Donovan. Welcome to this episode of Not Trekonomics. If in slavery all the product of one's time, labor, and intellect is the property of the slave master, then to the extent that debt requires you to give up future earnings to the lender and gives lenders the power to have it taken by force if you fail to pay, debt can, and I believe should, be thought of as voluntary servitude. Loans are never advertised in this context. You're always told of all the wonderful things you'll get now and just pay for later in an affordable monthly payment plan. And thereby, people are tricked into enslaving themselves. I run into and talk to a lot of college students at work and elsewhere as I go through my day, and it has brought to my attention that very few college students who have student loan debt know how to calculate the interest portion of their student loan payments, and almost none of them understand how the bank uses that calculation against them. Thank you, government schools. These people are poised to learn firsthand that the main difference between loan sharks and banks is that shark is right there in the title of loan shark. It's all the same racket. They're all sharks, and they're all working the same angles and using the same math. You should regard debt as not just a loss of future income, but freedom. Because you'll be working to make others rich the longer it takes you to pay your debt off. You don't need to go to the extreme of doing something like selling weapons on the holodeck the way Quark did in Deep Space Nine to get out of it, but you could do far worse than to sell your excess stuff to create a debt paydown fund, as we covered in a previous episode. Now, debts in Star Trek, you don't see them using it much except for the Ferengi, which is why I'm referring to Quark so much during these episodes. But in Star Trek, debts tend to take the form of favors owed, which has the downside that if you can't do it, paying back the money will never be an option. So, to effectively use this debt paydown fund I just mentioned, you need to understand some basic math. So we're going to address that first before we talk about specific strategies for paying debts down. Bankers count on most people not doing the calculations we're about to do before they sign a loan. If you are not in debt yet, forewarned is forearmed. If you're already in debt, grab your latest monthly statement. All right, for the math phobic in the audience, I'm going to confine the math to basic arithmetic, and we're going to basically look at principal payments, missed and late payments, debt consolidations, and basically what happens to your interest costs when you do all of these. This is fairly well known, but it is worth using the information consciously. It is worth taking a look at this in light of your actual debts, and I urge everyone watching this to do this. So, for our example loan, I'm using basically an estimated student loan for 2016. I'm assuming a $37,000 loan balance, 7% interest, and a payment of $430 a month, which should be pretty close. All the information we're going to need here is going to be on your statement and or in the loan contract. Definitely read the fine print. So, first, pick one of your loans, and I have two questions for you about that loan. How much is the monthly payment? That's question one. And how many dollars from your last payment went to interest? I'm betting most people could probably answer the first one, but probably don't have any real clear idea of the second one, the answer to the second question. Which one do you think is more in the bank's interest for you not to be able to answer easily? Now you know why interest and principal are combined into one payment. The banks will tell you that it's for convenience, and they're right. It's a convenient way for them to hide how much you're paying them. So that's lesson number one. Always know the monthly interest cost of all your debts, called keeping track of your expenses, folks, and the interest part is the big expense. So that's the first thing we're going to figure out, is how to calculate the interest portion of your payment, and we're going to do it from the perspective of the banker. The interest rate that is quoted to you on your loan is an annual percentage rate, APR to its friends. The bank charges you monthly, though, not yearly. The bank first, to get that to a monthly payment, converts that annual rate into a daily rate, also called the daily rate factor or the rate factor. And the way you get that is divide the APR by the number of days divide the APR by 100 to take it from a percentage to a decimal, and then divide the decimal form of the APR by the number of days in the year, 365. This is your daily interest rate, if you want to think of it that way. So you multiply that daily rate by the number of days in the billing period, which will be listed on your statement, to get the interest rate for that billing period. Usually the billing period is the number of days in the month, but read the fine print again because banks play with things like holidays and short months too. It may not be exactly the days in the month. So once you have your monthly interest rate, multiply that by your current balance to get your monthly interest payment. That's the portion of your payment that goes to interest. This is the part that gets the bank a nice monthly income stream, a small fortune in interest even on small loans like this one, and again, hides the cost of the loan. So you see on the graphic, we've gone through all the calculations. Your monthly interest cost for this particular loan would be $220.15. So that's what's going to interest. The next thing we want to do is add any fees to that monthly interest payment because that also comes out of your payment before your balance gets paid down. So your interest, late fees, origination fees, collection fees, any of those, banks don't do anything for free. Not all loans have every fee that I just mentioned above, but I'm going to assume, just for the sake of completeness, a 1.07% of your monthly payment as the fee for this loan. So that works out to about $4.60, to which we add the $420.15, which is your total cost for the billing period, $224.75. All right, step 3 then is to subtract the cost for your interest and fees from your monthly payment, and that'll show you what portion of your principal you're paying off that month. All right, now here's another question. If you think, well, how many of you think that the next step is to subtract the principal payment from your principal and you're done? That works mathematically, but if you think that's how the bank does it, congratulations, you have just fallen into another one of their traps. Now pay attention here, because understanding this next point is to understand how loans work in real life rather than in math class. The bank adds your total cost for the billing period, that $224.75. It adds it to your principal balance first and then subtracts your monthly payment. Now it does this so that if you don't pay that month, they can charge you interest on it and charge you a late fee or penalty along with, which also gets added to your balance, those late fees and penalties. We'll get to that shortly though. So you do this calculation, add the fees to your balance, subtract the $430, that gets you your new balance, and that's your current balance for starting the next billing period. So if you start in January, make all your payments on time for the next 6 months, you get the results shown in the graphic on the screen. Now this huge accumulated interest cost that we're seeing here of, in this case, $14,778 and 124 payments to finish the loan. So it's just, I figured this for a 10-year loan. So this huge interest cost is one reason I say you're usually far better off simply waiting and saving to purchase most consumer items and avoiding debt entirely. Your monthly interest cost is based on your current balances. As it drops, you pay less interest and you pay the loan off faster. The interest payment fluctuates based on the number of days in each billing cycle just a little bit, but generally falls as your balance gets smaller. This is called amortization. If those of you that are curious about, I guess over here on the numbers, I added 1 to the monthly interest rate to combine the multiplication and addition into a single step and make it fit on the screen better, but the numbers work out the same. So here's the point to keep in mind. When you pay more than your monthly payment, the extra gets subtracted from your principal and makes it drop faster. And that hurts the bank's bottom line. They want you to stay in debt forever and constantly be paying them something. But when you pay the principal down faster, it potentially saves you thousands in interest. That's why the banks are always trying to convince you to borrow more and hold debt longer. Ideally, as I said, banks want us all in debt all the time, so we're always paying them. That's their game. Don't play it. You want to get back at the banks, all you occupiers that were out making a mess in front of banks and accomplishing nothing? Here's what you do. Avoid debt, use it as little as possible, if at all, and pay any debt you have off fast. If you can't afford to pay the extra principal every month, don't take the loan. So let's compare this interest cost if you pay just $50 extra. Now, you may not be able to pay that much. Anything more than your basic payment, in this case $430, is good. Just make that your goal, never to only pay your monthly payment each month. So your total interest paid, if you just paid $50 extra, originally it would go from $14,778 down to $12,447, and it would take you 107 payments to pay the loan off. That's a $2,330 savings in interest from just an extra $50 per month to principal. Right? So that's and 17 months sooner to pay it off. Now there's a popular rule of thumb that you may have heard of, which is to pay your initial principal payment as an extra payment each month. In this case, that's $205.25. That's $430 minus your costs, which would bring your monthly payment to $635. And in that case, your total interest paid would go from $14,778 down to $8,240 and only 75 payments. That's a $6,357 interest savings, and the banks hate it when you do this because you are knocking them out of nearly half their profit on that loan. The danger of not being able to pay extra principal every month, whether it's one loan or several, is that an unexpected drop in your income or an increase in your expenses can cause late, partial, or missed payments. They're all treated basically the same. They all incur late fees and penalties, and all of those get added to your principal balance, which makes your principal balance go up, which is the exact opposite of the direction you want it to go. Late fees and penalties are incurred until the missed payments are paid in full. Do not be fooled by the helpful and accommodating tone that bankers and collection agents will take over the phone. Bankers and collection agents absolutely love it when you are late or miss. Suppose you completely missed your payment in our example above. To get your payments current the very next month, you need to have your next payment, so your regular payment, which would be $430, plus the missed payment, which would be $860. All right, your $860 would then be added to that. Would be added another $86. Which would be what, 970. I mean, I'm doing this in my head here. I don't have the stuff on the screen. The 860 plus 86, let's say 860 plus 90 is 950, 946. Okay, so you're at 946. All right, and if they throw a penalty on there too, and I'm using 10% here, which is kind of generous. North of 10% for late fees is not uncommon. If they throw in a penalty fee, let's say 5%, well, now you're up another $40 or so, and so you're looking close to triple. You're approaching triple your monthly payment for one missed payment here. Most people can't handle that all at once. The bank generously lets you split the missed payment into multiple installments usually. They now get all those late fees and penalties multiple times instead of just once. And this is all money that could have gone to an extra payment to your principal, reduced the interest you paid, and paid the loan off faster. The banks are simply not doing you any favors here. Even occasional late or missed payments only hurt you and always help the bank. Suppose you missed the next payment and the bank said, oh, no problem, we'll just add that to your principal balance and just keep paying your regular payment. We'll charge you a late fee until you've paid off the difference. This results in about 4 months worth of late fees, assuming you paid your $430 monthly payment after that and never missed another payment. And the total interest paid then would be $15,343 and 127 payments, not just 124, maybe 128, depending on how the bank does it. And you'd cost yourself $565 in interest over the life of the loan. Now that doesn't sound like much, but even a single late payment is costing you $565 on this fairly small loan if you're just making the regular payment. And the bigger the loan and the higher the interest rates or fees, the worse the effects are going to be. And they are cumulative. I read the other week, about a week ago in the Wall Street Journal, that Where student debt is concerned, some 330,000 people haven't made a payment in over a year. So add 536 again and again and compound that interest. Those people are looking at absolute hell. Again, if you can't afford to pay extra principal each month, you're better off avoiding debt entirely, and that includes for school. I strongly favor avoiding debt entirely, as my regular viewers know, but that's up to you. So, takeaways for this episode. Avoid debt if you possibly can, even if you have to wait to make a large purchase, including school or a house. Far better to wait, save, and have a debt small enough to make extra payments on than to be in constant risk of missed payments and late fees. If you can't afford to pay extra principal, I say again every month, if you can't afford to pay it, the more the better. Don't take that loan. Treat all debt as if it threatens your future prosperity and take it out of play as fast as possible, particularly student loan debt because it's so hard to discharge through bankruptcy. Always know your monthly costs in interest and fees. Try very hard never to miss a payment and avoid late fees and penalties. That's all I got for this one. In our next episode, now that we have a way to calculate our interest costs, we have the tool we need to intelligently evaluate whether to pay your loans according to interest rate or lowest balance first, whether to do debt consolidations, and whether and when to consider bankruptcy. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope someone found this useful, and may the balance of your day be awesome.